Thank you.
Now, Russell, I kind of shared a little bit how you got
Okay.
to Chosen.
Yeah,
right?
that'd be great.
But tell us this: you kind of got to peruse a little bit. When did you first hear about Chosen? This Chosen.
Yeah, this Chosen. While I was sitting there listening to Jenny, I was thinking back because I too ran a half marathon in 2007, the Austin, and then full marathon when I was 50 in 2009. But it was during that time that I was training for that. So I'm not sure, to be honest. I know it's been over 10 years. My son Ryan is Russell Ryan. I'm Russell Robert, but he goes by Ryan. He and his wife fostered 2 children here in the state of Texas. And then 3 years after their journey, they went ahead and adopted the 2 children. They have since divorced recently, which breaks my heart. But it shows generational trauma. And I am praying for them, and I believe the Lord will redeem the years the cankerworm has eaten on my family. So I'm grateful to be here and have this opportunity to speak with you. So I was in the Chosen Run that was out in the hill country, and my son kicked my butt. He called me and said, "Dad, there's this group called Chosen that I want you to do this run with me." I think it was a 10K or something like that. All these rocky hills and stuff. I thought, I can do this. I could do it. I'm like walking half of it, but it was so moving to go and see the children without any faces, and just talking to my son about his inspiration because he had heard my story. I have told people I'm second generation foster child. My mother was a foster child in the 30s. I actually brought pictures of my family with me because they come with me everywhere I go. They're my North Star, I guess. I am working through trauma, have been working through trauma most of my life. And to do that, it's quite a journey, but trauma doesn't win. I thank you for that. Because I do firmly believe that, or I wouldn't be sitting here today. So,
Well, Russell, you talked about how trauma's kind of been a theme, if you will, in your family. Tell us, just back us up a little bit to how you got to San Antonio and before San Antonio.
Yeah, my father was a salesman, and my mother had no high school education. Well, she had 10th grade, and she married my father, and they had 4 boys. I'm the third of 4 boys. My last name was Polk. And my mother's parents were, her father died very young, alcoholic, in his 40s. And my grandmother, who's in this picture with my mother, she was probably an incest victim herself. She was undiagnosed with syphilis, and it went to her brain. And so my grandmother was always very dear to me. Her name is Catherine. My youngest daughter is Caitlin, named after her. Caitlin Hope, pure expectation. And I'm just so grateful for the walk that I've been through. As I was thinking about what I wanted to say today, one of the things that God brought to my heart and mind was that as I focused on trauma throughout that time in my life, and actually the military raised me, so that's what brought me to San Antonio. They were my parents. I used to focus on all the negative. And then I think about my adopted father, and I thought, I wouldn't have the love of reading if it weren't for him, even though there were times that I hated him, So back up, my parents, it was huge domestic violence. My father was a deacon in the church. I was raised in the church. My great uncle played for Billy Graham Crusades in Indianapolis. a just amazing family dynamic around the church, but I saw such hypocrisy within the church that it just overwhelmed me. It's amazing that I still have faith today, but actually it's stronger because of that. So when and my parents, through all the violence, my dad would go to church and then he'd beat the hell out of my mother when we got home. My mother tried to raise us on a waitress salary, and my mother was a foster child in 6 different homes in the 30s. And she used to say all the time, I'm so glad those things didn't happen to me, sexual abuse, violence, and that sort of thing. And I thought, if you only knew Mom, and my mom just passed away in July of last year. I spent 3 months with her while she was in hospice. But anyway, I apologize. My brain kind of goes all over the place, but I'll try to keep it sequential for you. After that, my parents divorced, separated, tried to get back together, constant moving from one home to another. My father moved to Cincinnati. I was born and raised in Indianapolis, and he remarried. And my mother one day came in and handed us all garbage, or back then, grocery sacks, and said, here, pack your stuff, we're going. Well, where are we going? You'll know when we get there. She drove us to Cincinnati. My 2 older brothers, my oldest brother, David, is in this picture with me. He's deceased. He died in 2018. He was diagnosed bipolar schizophrenic, struggled all through his 20s and most of his life. So anyway, after the divorce, my mother took us to my father and dropped us off on her doorstep and walked away. I was probably 9 years old. We're all 2 years apart. So I have a little brother, Daryl, and my other brother, Daryl. And my father, in his infinite wisdom, we had 5 sons at that time with 2-bedroom apartment. My grandmother was very involved in her church, and she found this, she got this little folder, brochure on Show Me Christian Youth Home in Lamont, Missouri. And during that time, she told my father, maybe we could go there. No family members would take us, except my uncle. And took my little brother for a while, and then that got very complicated. And so one weekend, my father drove us to Lamont, Missouri, and my youngest brother and I were put in the Show Me Christian Youth Home for a year and a half, so 2 years. And so we were separated from our family completely. I went from the 3rd child to the oldest. And in that children's home, we met the Callahans. And he was a pastor, and his wife, and they had two young boys. He came to visit, and my brother, I had gone to youth camp, and when I came back, my brother had said, hey, I met this couple, they want us to come live with them. They're going to be our foster family. And I said, no, they're not. Dad's going to come back and get us, and we're all going to be a family again. That did not happen. Mr. Callahan came the next weekend, wanted to meet me, and took me to a church camp across the way, and touched me for the very first time. That was at age 11. Needless to say, that wasn't the first time I had been touched. 3 other family members, before I ever got to the home, did that. I struggled all my life with my sexual identity. And today I can sit here and tell you that until you know your identity in Christ, we all wear a scarlet letter. And I used to think I was the only one who wore a scarlet letter. This is no accident that I'm speaking to you today in 2018. Well, I don't want to go there yet. I'm letting the Holy Spirit speak through me to say what I need to say. It's people like you that made the difference in my life. So don't stop doing it, no matter how hard it is. In 6th grade, I was in the children's home in Lamont, Missouri. And my 6th grade teacher was Mrs. Helper. She's the only teacher I remember. But I was a kid from the home with pants that didn't fit, teased and bullied constantly. She disciplined me. Back then they could do corporal punishment. One time I got in a fight with a girl on the playground. Mrs. Helper spanked me in front of my class. You would think I'd hate her. I tried to look her up, because I have since gone back to every one of my childhood homes and sat and journaled. I've been through so much therapy you wouldn't believe. But it's people like you that make a difference. Hebrews 13:2 says something to the effect of, I'll paraphrase it, but basically, you never know who you're entertaining. Could be angels unaware. I've had several angels in my life. This battle buddy right here, Denton McMorris, is one of them. And that's why I asked him to come. I moved to St. Joseph, Missouri, because he was a pedophile. He moved every 2 years. We changed churches every 2 years. Out of state. I've been to so many states in the Midwest. And when I was 18 years old, I decided to go to nursing school at West Texas State University, which is now West Texas A&M. That's how I got to Texas. I did 1 year. I was doing drugs. I was going to gay bars. I was a mess. I was a mess. And I said, I'll join the military. My adopted dad said, you can't stand authority and you're going in the military, but it was an escape. And so I went into the Air Force as an operating room technician. I passed the instrument to the surgeon. I did that for 8 years. One of my most favorite jobs. I saw that the race you were running was sponsored by Humana. I worked for Humana when I got out of the military. It was my first corporate job. I also work for Superior Health Plan, and Lorraine Martinez, I worked with her team. It's come full circle for me. And after Troy called me, I was driving out at Denton's RV park, and I heard clearly the voice of God say, I've chosen you for this moment. You are chosen to help set the captives free. You asked me when we were sitting in Panera Bread, where does God have you going from here? And I said, I know there's a book inside of me. So I sat next to a lady today. Sorry, I don't remember your name. Who wrote a book? Go figure, And yesterday I had somebody from church call me and say, hey, there's this workshop on books. So I see God moving in that way. And he's already given me the title. It's called Father's Love. And if we can understand that. So I've gone through 2 militaries. I served in the Air Force for 7.5 years. I was discharged with an honorable discharge, but because of sexual addiction and other addictions that I had, I lost the military. I went into the Army. I worked in ComSec equipment repair. God was gracious enough to give me another military career. And I served in Panama. I was married to a woman for 26 years, have 4 children and 8 grandchildren, and 2 of those were adopted and had Superior Health Plan as their health plan. So this is my family. I also told Brad, one of the things that came up during this conversation when we met Jenny was through Troy. Then we had a Zoom call with Jenny, and my brothers were on it. My brother Rick, 39 years in the Navy. My brother Daryl, my youngest brother, is a doctor. He put himself through medical school. He is a DO in Kansas, in Manhattan, Kansas, and I was so excited to hear that you needed a medical director, and I had Daryl. But he doesn't do pediatrics, general practitioner, but he's served in the National Guard over 30 years. So we're all 3 kind of raised by the military. So,
Russell, thank you.
I ramble, son.
No.
I am an external processor, as you can tell.
Big basketball fan too, right?
Yes.
So as you were sharing that story, you really shared a lot of just the trauma that you've lived. But now you're on the other last chapter, last half of life, not last chapter, but last half of life.
Yeah.
And you look at how have you seen trauma just generationally passed down to the next generation?
Well, like I said, my grandmother, actually my grandmother and grandfather, my maternal grandparents, were first cousins. I also, in my family, on my father's side, there was so much anger and hatred and bitterness, and it was all geared at family. Come to find out, my great-grandmother is a Hatfield from the Hatfields and McCoys. So yes, generational crap. Let's just say it. It's just horrible, horrific, and the secrets are kept. My mother, on her deathbed, was 84 years old, the most bitter woman I've ever met. I said, Mom, God's restored everything you've ever wanted. All 4 of your boys are back in your life. And you are surrounded by how many grandchildren? 50 grandchildren or something like that. Great-grandchild and a great-great-grandchild. And yet she was miserable every day of her life. So I don't know how to pick them. And she picked another man that was more abusive, verbally abusive to her. So I saw that, not only that type of abuse, but then the hidden secrets were the sexual incest, and that there was, incest on both sides of my family. When my father passed away in 2019, Denton went on a trip with me to go see him. I wanted to just release all of that. And I was not able to find him, but he passed away in 2019. And my oldest brother, Ricks, had a relationship with him. My oldest brother, Ricks, R-I-C-K-S is his name. He still has the last name Polk. So he and my father were pretty close, and he said that that our father had revealed to him that he had been sexually abused by a family member as well. So it was on both sides of my family, and it has devastated my relationship with my children even. I am estranged from 3 of the 4 because of sexual preferences and things that they've heard about, my legal issues and being kicked out of the military and starting to find some of these things out. Of course, they get bits and pieces of the story. And so it has really devastated. So my brothers went on the death of my mother, and I really feel like this was the catalyst that kept me bound, to be honest. I wanted to please her so much. I wanted to have a relationship with her so much, but she was the first person that ever victimized me. And I did not realize it until I was 60-something years old. I'm 64. And through therapy, it came out. And it, I was in Houston yesterday, and my niece is going. My niece is also a victim of incest, and we are sitting there, and I see this. You see this picture of her when she graduated high school. She could have been a model. I mean, it's just absolutely beautiful. And today I look at her, and she's just a broken woman, overweight and just struggling with Crohn's disease and all these different issues, physical issues. And so I had a chance to pray with her in the Houston airport. She's going on a mission trip with her church from Iowa. And it's for victims of human trafficking and sex trafficking in Mexico City. And I said, this is a healing experience for you too, Kimberly. And we just had a moment, the two of us together, and we had the same moment across my mother's bed while she was in hospice. And I said, this is no accident that the three of us are in this room together. And God is redeeming the years the locusts have eaten on our family. And I told my brothers, I'm the emotional one, I'm the weeper. I'm just getting over Bell's palsy, so I don't cry pretty, but I really don't cry pretty with Bell's. But I told my brothers we're very, very athletic. Not so much, but definitely my brothers. And we love the Final Four. We always pick our teams. And I mean, it's like and it was a huge event for my brother David, who passed away. He wanted to be a sports announcer, could have been. He knew all the stats. I mean, it was just amazing to have conversations with him during games and after games and things like that. But we said, and I think I shared this with you in Panera, is that we are the Final Four. We are not passing this on to our children and grandchildren. And it takes a lot of courage. I've worn my lion's shirt for a reason. My very first therapist, God bless her soul, she is in heaven with the Lord. Her name was Jane Hild. Her husband played the organ for John Hagee's church, Cornerstone. I used to teach at Cornerstone School. I've been involved with Cornerstone Ministry and CBC and many of the churches in San Antonio. My son was a pastor at CBC, a youth pastor. And my daughter was a pastor for young adult ministry at CBC as well, Caitlin Houston. But I know that God is going to use my story. And it's not my testimony, it's His. He has saved me. And one day, as I was writing the preface of my book, dedicating it to my children, God showed me that my story is His gospel message.
Russ, what you say that. One of that, I just want to affirm a couple things that as I've been processing and praying through today, it's been very easy to become callous to the things of God. And I'm sure there were moments where you were wondering, God, where are you? But now at 64, what you see His sustaining hope. You see His hand literally sustaining. When you thought, I don't know where He's at, but He was. If you just had a single word or a thought to share away, really a staff that lives in that world every day with people going, I don't know how there could be anything good in this. I don't know how there could be any hope for tomorrow. And we're living in a world that seems to be more and more the climate of hopelessness. what has sustained you? What word, has there been a word from Scripture? Has there just been a thought that Jesus continues to remind you of to be his gospel?
Grace. Grace. His amazing grace. I deserve so much less than he's given me. I mentioned Jane Hild when I first sat down in her office. My kindergartner, Caitlin Hope, was out in the lobby, and she used to color and stuff. She was in her Cornerstone uniform. She'd sit there and just brighten everybody's day. And I sat there hopeless. I felt absolutely hopeless. I had been arrested for public lewdness, and I was losing the PA program in the United States Army. Something I had dreamed of. My grandmother was a nurse. I mean, medical field has been in our family. But to know that my choices had caused that. And then I've realized that every choice has a consequence. But I knew that Jane said to me, I said, where was God in all of this? She said, laying right next to you, being abused. I had never thought that. But where he is. He was holding you. And then to hear him say, you're chosen. I knew from the womb. He used to tell me. I used to play for church. I played the organ for church in third grade. I can't play a lick today.
They're not to be working.
You know, because there's so many things that could have happened. And I would look back at those things and go, wow, God took that away from me. Or, you know, I blame God for everything. And yet, what I was saying at the very beginning was, here's a pastor who's a pedophile, and I thought all these horrible things about him, but times you probably wanted to kill him. God showed me this morning, but you wouldn't have a love for reading, your style for dress. He taught you to dress. You know, there are things that I got from the trauma that I would have never learned any other way. So to me, it truly is beauty from ashes. And that's what you're doing every day. You're watering, you're pruning, you're being a smile. Something as small as that can mean so much to a child like me. And that inner child is still in here. But Jane said to me, one day you're going to look in the mirror, Russell, and you're going to see the lion within, and let it roar. So this book is going to get finished. One wonder how that. And this is a start of something beautiful. I told Jenny and Brad, my brothers, I'm praying with them. What is it that we need to do for this organization? Because this organization is needed. Desperately needed. You wouldn't believe how many social workers and people that work in this field that you think you can trust. And they broke that trust. So trust has always been an issue, and I'm sure you see that all the time in the drama. That trust is the biggest issue. So trusting God is the hardest part. But if I can just stop and go, if not by the grace of God. And the grace helps me to trust him because he's always been my Father.
Russell, thank you for just opening up your life to us today.
Thank you for allowing me to.
Sharing your story and being with us today. So thank you.
I love you, brother. Thank you so much.